call to order the Police Commission regular meeting on Monday, November 13th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. Let us start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Correspondence. Commissioner Grant, would you be so kind as to read our correspondence?
Okay, received from Chief Matthew J. McNally, the 4th, Town of Berlin, regarding Officer Lieutenant Christian. The Chief of the Berlin Police Department sends his thanks for Lieutenant Christian's participation in the oral board panel for Sergeant for the Town of Berlin. Lieutenant Christian displayed knowledge of the job and professionalism that added to the credibility and thoroughness of the panel. End of correspondence.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the October 11th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I know they came a little slower than typical, so if everybody wants to look over real quick, or if you're good to go. Tanisha, did you have a chance to look?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor of approving the October 11th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Next are the reports. Next on the I don't have a motion for the approval of the minutes. We did have a motion. First and second. In any event, we're moving on to reports, starting with me, the chairperson. That's right. At our last meeting, we discussed budget stuff and mentioned I think we discussed it in here, the request for the license plate reader, the LPR cameras for end of year savings. The chief and I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting and they discussed different options that the town manager had recommended. Our license plate reader cameras were not on there, but they asked the chief several questions and he did an excellent job articulating the need and the necessity for those cameras, and they were added to the Board of Selectmen end of year budget, savings budget, and is now going to the Board of Finance but we have to get the Board of Finance to approve it.
It's a flock.
Yes, yeah.
And there was unanimous support.
Yeah, so it was very nice that the Board of Selectmen are on board. Hopefully the Board of Finance feels the same. Their meeting is tomorrow evening, so feel free to arrive wearing your police commission shirt so they know who you are and why you're there.
Could you remind me the total dollar amount there that we're looking for?
$39,500.
Thank you.
I reached out to the town manager's office to request a date for us to present our budget to the new Board of Selectmen once they are sworn in, but I have not heard back yet. So I'm going to follow up with them on that, but it is in the hopper. Speaking of the new Board of Selectmen, their swearing in will be on December 4th, right after our meeting. So if you'd like to go and meet the new Board of Selectmen and all of the newly elected folk in town, that will be after our meeting on December 4th. And our fiscal year 24-25 budget is due December 16th. And that concludes my report. I will now turn it over to the chief for his.
And just to add to yours, that swearing in ceremony is at Memorial Hall. Personnel, we are still basically in the same position that we've been in for some time. We are down personnel. We have 3 vacancies and 3 people still on extended leave. We have another extended leave coming up in December. So we're trying to manage that whole aspect, staffing of patrol. We've made one movement so far, and unfortunately we had to put the traffic officer back on patrol schedule. So we made that move on November 8th. And then we'll be looking at making other moves to make sure that we have adequate staffing for patrol coverage. Jared Ermezian has been at the academy now for well over a month and is doing very well. We have a Stuffer Cruiser event coming up. We don't have the dates and times yet. I will get those to you as soon as we have those. There was a Veterans Memorial Ceremony yesterday that Deputy Chief Davis was able to attend. And we were presented with this Law Enforcement Award. It says, in grateful recognition of unyielding adherence to the highest ideals of law enforcement in maintaining, preserving, and protecting the lawful rights of all citizens by the veterans of foreign wars of the United States. So I thought that was extremely special that on a day that we are grateful for their service, they're thinking of others. And that is all that I have.
That just jarred my memory.
Yes.
I know Commissioner Long was there. I was there at the Interval House domestic violence. I'm just gonna talk louder. At the domestic violence, their big fundraiser where they acknowledge their partners that have helped them, and they specifically commented on the chief and all of the work that the Simsbury Police Department has done. And so I just wanted to mention kudos. Now, our consolidated monthly reports. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Continue to be large drop-offs in numbers of incidents, it seems. Like almost 400 in the last month, and almost 5,000 year to date. I'm trying to recall what the basis of that change was. About there?
I don't know off the top of my head what those specifically are, but we can look at those. We know that our medical calls have been pretty much consistent. What I'll take a guess at is our documented patrol checks. So those sort of go up and down. The officers continue to check businesses, but there are certain times where they feel it's necessary to actually document that check. So the regular patrol function is driving all throughout, sometimes multiple times in areas where it's important to see a cruiser or check on certain things, say a particular business in town. And sometimes the officers document that, other times they don't. We have had a very high number of those at certain times of the year or certain times depending on who's assigned to a particular district, and for whatever reason they document that. But I'll look to see what that difference is.
Well, our DUIs went down, so I'm going to assume that people are not driving drunk and they're being more safe instead of like we was. There's a decrease.
Boy, that'd be something.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And also the strobe lights that you have on those speed things that probably freak everybody out. Not saying that I've seen one.
It was the car in front of you.
It was the car in front of me.
You saw it from a distance.
Yes, that's what it was.
And we also have,
I was just gonna ask, any comment on motor vehicle thefts? I mean, it still continues to rise, the problem.
It is, and we are not, again, the only one that's experiencing this. Everybody has experienced an increase since last year. since 2022. So our numbers are pretty high. The patrol officers are trying to do what they can. We are actively involved. We've recovered, I think, all but maybe one vehicle for the entire year. We're continuing to do swabs for DNA, and we're getting those back. Sometimes they take a significant amount of time. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we received one that was taken from prints from a vehicle recovered a long time ago. So we're going to continue to do as much as we can to try to prevent these, stop these, and hold people accountable for it.
Is there any risk with, not documenting those stops, not the stolen cars, but back to the...
Patrol checks?
Yeah.
So I can speak to when I was on patrol.
Yeah. That was last since.
A little while ago, yeah.
Back in the 1900s?
Yeah.
So if we knew that there was an increase in residential burglaries in a certain type of neighborhood, or an increase in commercial burglaries at gas stations, whatever it may be, we would purposely spend more time at those. And we would make sure that we documented some of them. It wouldn't be uncommon to drive through Holloway's Plaza on a midnight shift 5 to 10 times, while you're also going through neighborhoods and every other part, but you wouldn't document that every single time. So it's nice to have sort of a stamp mark. Now, it's 2023, we have some other technology that can show where our vehicles were at certain times. So I would not say it's critical, but it's a lot easier and quicker for us to say, when was the last time on a particular shift we checked one of these places? And I would imagine that if our car dealerships were being hit, ours in the region, we would see an increase in the documented checks of those.
We put out like a specific area of concern, like the religious, the buildings during the incidents that have been going on. They would make more, they would make sure that they would document those patrol checks when they went through. But kind of like routine, kind of passing through some of the, your daily business checks at night or what have you, might not always document. So you're driving by and everything's, looks copacetic, not necessarily always just documented.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the consolidated monthly numbers? Or the preliminary monthly activity report?
Is that the one that says incident statistics?
Yes.
Okay, I actually do have a question. So what's the difference between a motor vehicle stop, I'm assuming that's what MV stands for, and the traffic enforcement?
So traffic enforcement is an effort that's specifically made for either compliance or enforcement. So for instance, if you were to call up and say, I think there's a lot of people speeding on my street, or they're going through a stop sign, we're going to have an officer go out there and they're going to spend some time there. They're going to document that. They may not find anybody going through the stop sign or anybody speeding, but they're going to make efforts to document that. So a lot of these are just self-initiated, where the officers want to document their activity, and oftentimes it's a direct response to a complaint that there's motor vehicle activity. So those are not tracking the number of stops, unlike the MV stop DWI, the MV stop speed. Those are specific traffic stops.
Okay, and so there wouldn't be any overlapping then between traffic enforced speed and motor vehicle stop speed?
Correct. It only allows us to do one category.
Any other questions? Anything you all think we should know about any of this? All right. In that case, we will move on to new business. Starting with the proposal of police commission meeting dates for the calendar year 2024. I have a couple notes to, first of all, our list says 2023, but they are 2024, so. Oh. My list says 2023, but yours say 2024 because you all are on the ball. February 14th is Valentine's Day, but we had to move it to that Wednesday because Layton's birthday is a town hall noted date that we can't have meetings. So, are you all willing to give up an hour on your Valentine's Day?
Only if you've given us enough free chocolate.
And I think, was that the date that you had mentioned, there was something
Yeah,
else?
that's Ash Wednesday too. for-
Oh. Is Ash Wednesday an evening?
Something all day.
Center,
Is
clearly. I don't know, it's all day.
I'm an heathen.
So is there another day that works that week for the game?
Well, that's my question.
That works for me, I'm fine with that.
Listen.
It doesn't work
I
for me.
don't. Okay.
It's a double whammy. It's,
All right.
it's my daughter's birthday and.
Oh, all
I
right,
need
well
to
then.
Pay tribute here.
Why don't we meet on Tuesday, Deborah?
I'm gonna look to see what's happening on Tuesday, February 13th. How does that work? Any problems?
There's no date issues on the list.
Okay. I have an eye doctor appointment. I might not be able to see you if they dilate my eyes, but you know, it's fine. Okay, so we are switching this to February 13th. I did 20th. All right, the next possible issue I bring up to everyone but Mike is April 8th of spring break for the schools. So, if you intend to take your spring break, we should look for,
We've canceled the last 2 years.
yes. So, do we want to move it
Why don't you leave it for now and
and then cancel it as time
then,
comes?
yeah.
We could just not have an April meeting, or do you guys want to pick another date just as backup in case we have a plethora of candidates to hire?
I think just leave the date over here.
We just adjust as we get closer.
All right. People have spoken. The next oddball is a Wednesday, October 16th. That is because it is both Columbus and Indigenous Peoples' Day on Monday, so we're moving to the 16th. All right. November, the Monday is the 11th, which is Veterans Day, so we're moving it to the 13th, which is Wednesday. All right. And then the last one is December 2nd is the first Monday, which is when we typically have our December meetings so that we can make the budget.
Yep, makes sense to me.
All right, any questions, concerns? In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the amended meeting schedule for 2024.
I'll second
All right, all in favor of
Aye.
approving? Aye.
Aye.
There's a lot of words coming out that we're not gonna be in the right order. Next on the new business is the operational budget discussion, which I will turn over to the chief.
So I've provided you with just two pieces of paper. There's a front and back for both of them. The one that does not have any highlighting to it is the proposed, and still in draft form, the police operating budget. And I just took our current year fiscal '24 numbers, and that's in the second column there. I put in the proposed for next year, and then you can see the change there by both percentage and by actual number. For the categories that have a significant change, I've put a number to the far right, and on the back is a brief explanation.
You are so thorough, because I was gonna say, what are those numbers in that column? I appreciate that.
Yep.
I heard you coming and jumped right in.
You get in trouble by the teacher.
And just like every year, we solicit information, feedback, suggestions from the command level staff. They have time to put together their salary, or their proposed budgets for the responsibilities that they have, and then we go through line item after line item. There's been, traditionally an increase, especially the last few years. Just keeps going, up and up with even computer software items, several things. We have found some areas to, I don't want to say cut, but areas where we don't need to spend next year. When we had the new officers that were hired, we also had additional funds put in to be able to fund that whole startup for a new officer, all the equipment and everything. And I think the easiest thing for the town to do is just, instead of dumping individual amounts in individual line items, it all gets put into one. So as you can see in the clothes and safety supplies, it's down quite a bit because we had 2 to 3 officers worth of stuff in there. We haven't hired them. Hopefully we will be this year, and it's in our budget this year to have that. So I don't expect us to have to hire 3 in addition to the regular 1 or 2 that we budget for the following year. So that's the reason why item number 7 has been reduced. It's because a significant amount 2 years ago was dumped in there and more last year to cover the 2 officers from the year before and the 1 officer last year.
What's the season? Is that?
Crossing guards.
Oh.
If we were to get if the Board of Finance approves the LPR, is there like maintenance for it or software or anything like that?
No, so it's a lease,
Okay.
and it's actually a 2-year lease if they use the year-end savings that we requested. So we would have no operating cost or anything for the first year and the second year. It would be the third year if we decided to keep those or add to those that we would see a cost. And even at that point, it's a 1 set fee per camera. There's no additional like maintenance or operating.
What were we gonna do to this crop? That came out awkwardly. What were we going to provide for the crossing guards that got declined?
So there was a new stop sign, and it was, the word stop was illuminated with LED lights. Yeah, and it was highly reflective.
Okay.
There was also some additional umbrellas, and I believe it was gloves. Yeah,
Sort
it
of.
was another clothing item that was going to be reflective and highly visible. So if that is denied, we will find the funds for that.
So that's not accounted for.
It's not enough.
Didn't we give them a raise recently to like meet mandatory minimums or?
We did. I think it was 2, potentially 3 budgets ago.
Oh, that's recently.
Well, it is considering, I think it was last year, it went like 10 plus years at the same rate.
Any questions? Additional questions?
The second sheet is set up the same exact way. It's just a much smaller budget. It's for the dispatch center. So there's not as much information there. There are no numbers to explain things. There's one large increase there. It's a 96% increase, but it goes from $2,000 to almost $4,000. And that's for the overtime training. So we have, finally finding some training sources for our dispatchers that we feel are good trainings and expect to be
And
able to
this
provide
doesn't
some.
include that software
It's
that
not.
we did not get the grant for.
Correct.
Okay.
And we will try again.
Circling back to the previous page there, the vehicle maintenance.
Yes.
With our change to our EV program, are we, do we expect any fluctuations in the maintenance piece, or is it really just in the vehicle purchase prices?
So it's interesting you asked that because don't expect a whole lot except in the fuel consumption.
Yeah.
And that maintenance primarily goes towards tires. We spend over $7,000 for tires for our fleet. It goes towards oil. We spend a couple $1,000s in oil per year. And then oil filters, headlamps, tail lamps, brakes, sometimes rotors, all those things that our highway garage mechanics can do. So that 20,000 and change is fairly low for the fleet that we have. And I think it speaks to our program of keeping our cars in great condition and turning them over before they are problematic and expensive.
Good stewardship, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So for the hybrid vehicles, I don't expect any with that because the tires are going to wear the same. The oil changes are going to be basically the same, headlights and stuff like that. We are coming up on just over a year now with the first one or two of those, and so we're anticipating a good savings on those in the gasoline area.
Okay.
So including the 2 additional records clerks, is less than a 2% increase.
It is, and there's a couple reasons why.
Okay.
So the IBPO, which makes up most of our personnel, that's 40 of the 55, 53 and a half. Their contract expires June 30th next year. So the only thing built into this salary, this full-time salary, is the step increases that they will get. There's no GWI.
Right.
And we don't budget for that. The town handles that in a contingency fund.
Okay.
Had there been a salary or a contract and there was a GWI increase, then our percent increase would be a lot higher. Probably a couple percent higher. What's also impacting this is we have 3 positions that are still at the entry level. So instead of, because we haven't been able to fill these positions, we've gone years now with anywhere from 2 to 4 vacancies. And when somebody leaves, they are generally at a higher step, and the next person starts considerably less. So there's almost a $30,000 difference between entry level, patrol officer, and a PFC. So when a PFC leaves, we now have the entry level, which is significantly less. And we are budgeting for it, but we weren't able to hire. We're really working hard right now. We have people in the process now. It looks really good. So this may be very accurate that they will be starting off next fiscal year, about halfway through a year for them. So, but there are some savings there because of that.
And it's just the 2 full-time, we're not asking for the hour extra, right? The hour extra for our part-time clerk, that is not.
Good question. That is correct.
Okay. Are we considering, I can't remember where we left on it. I apologize.
So we are, but there's some contractual aspects to that.
Okay,
So that's still in the works.
okay. So that could change before December.
That could change, and that's a roughly $8,000 difference. And so if there is support for that outside of here, which we already know there's been support for that here now for the last few years, and they're able to work on things contractually with that, then I'm hopeful that they can find a source for that.
And this is a little bit unrelated, but you made me think, when do they start the negotiations for the,
My guess is that they've held off because of the interim town manager. Because a new manager will be coming in January 8th.
so we should follow up with the new manager pretty shortly thereafter. We, the police commission.
What do we want to propose for the new contract? Do we have any proposals?
I think What we could do is an executive session at the next meeting. And that may give a little bit of time for thought. It's always an option.
It won't be too late then.
It will not.
Because our next meeting is December 4th, and if the new guy, the new town manager doesn't start until January 8th, we should give us some time. And it'll give you all time to think and research and ruminate on where your head's at. Ruminate. Got that SAT vocabulary. All right, any other questions about the operational budget discussion?
I have none.
I will have a finalized proposal for each of those 4 budgets. So what's not included here is the animal control budget and then the police commission budget. So I'll have those finalized for the next meeting.
Sorry, animal control and.
Animal control and the police commission budget.
Yeah.
That'll be several pages.
I feel like this commission should,
Right.
next we need. All right. Any old business?
I have none at this point.
Speak out, or hold your peace.
Yeah, building, long-term planning. I'm just wondering how we start chipping away at that. We gotta, specifically, I'm looking at, when do we start thinking about a building move? And how do we, march from today to 5 years or 7 years from now when we wanna be in a new facility and lay out the milestones?
Well, there's been a couple meetings. There's been meetings, we've been meeting about these.
Yeah.
Well, there were tentative meetings because Tecton did a report, I don't know, that feels like 5 years ago, it was probably a year ago. And then it just said, like, these are all the things you should have, but they did not evaluate what we have in the shortcomings between like point A and point C, like we didn't have that. So then the town manager, current town, yes, town manager Erdman. Yes, Lee set up a meeting and discussed with Public Works, Planning, the chief, and I, what that next step would be. And then, it's, I guess, they're thinking on it, they're looking into all the different options, what are possible. So is it worth currently addressing where our shortcomings are so that we can get through the next 5 years? Or is it a better use of funds to say, forget it, we're just gonna stay cramped and move up a schedule to try to find a new location and what all that would entail? I think they have to kind of evaluate more closely what we need immediately and how long that gets us as far as is it possible to make the space currently work? Like with locker rooms, for example, like female employee locker rooms, we don't have a lot of space for increase. The filing is eating up the entire filing room, so there's not enough room for the 2 clerks. So how do we get 2 clerks in there and make room for all of the documentation that we have to maintain because of the state? And can we put it in off-site storage, or is there a way to put a trailer or something more secure than a trailer? So these are all things that they're discussing right now to figure out what options exist to meet those needs.
Who's the they? And then when is the next, okay, we've decided that we have shortfalls and we're going to either address them or we're going to cut bait and go for the long term?
They is really Public Works as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Addressing like what's possible with the back of the building to put a temporary addition on. So I think Public Works was in the process of determining what the options are right now.
And some of the immediate shortfalls are being addressed with next year's budget. That was in our capital request for renovations downstairs to provide space for 2 new records employees. In this budget is 2 new records employees. And then the digitalization
Digital
project.
filing, yep.
Yep, to be able to take all that storage in there and move it somewhere. And then we have had many discussions about if we need to temporarily expand or switch the women's locker room with another part of the building, like what are our options? What are the options of a temporary structure outside for a few years? And then there have been discussions about a new building down the line. But I would expect that in your presentation to the Board of Selectmen, yeah, there will be a conversation about that to make sure that's officially on the books as.
When do we become part of the day? So we know what's going on. We as a commission.
Once they have some information too, I think in part at this point. I'm not sure what the timeline is. I can follow up with Public Works to see where they are in the process and kind of go from there. And once we have an idea, then we can meet with them and go from there.
Right.
So.
What holds Public Works' feet to the fire to actually provide some feedback here? Is it?
Thus far, it's been
are
my
we
emails.
Are we the line? Or-
So they were looking at like what are the options, and we were sort of trying to figure out like within those options what really is the best option for a 5 to 7 year or so plan, and that's where we sort of stalled. And I think the idea of getting a new facility on the books in a certain amount of time will help us decide what we have to do. Because if for some reason that plan is 15 years down the line, well, a 5 to 7 year plan is not going to help us too well right now. So I think we've stalled with anything more than just general ideas on what we could do. And those were pretty much in depth, but as far as like specific diagrams and more than just thoughts on it.
Would it make sense to have them come in and do a presentation or update?
We can.
I mean, if there's any additional questions.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I think we probably collectively need to lay out, all right, what's the ideal situation? If we want to be in a new building in 5 years, what would be the milestones that we need to hit between now and then to make this happen? And then we can start shooting at something.
Yeah, I think target number 1 is getting it on the capital plan, and I think we're moving in that direction well.
I think we really need to have a clear statement of what our shortcomings are. That was, I feel like, part of the problem was that they said, you need all of these things, but what do we not have? If we need special sized evidence cleaning, air suction, I'm not using the right words, but they had technical terms,
Sure.
but I don't know.
Interview room.
Yeah, like
bigger
they-
filing area.
Well, where are we?
Yeah.
It's nice to know that this is what we need. How do we have these and they're too small? Do they have these and they're not, whatever the shortcomings are? And so that's what I know I wanted to hear is okay, great, but where are we? And if you can make this space work for a fraction of the cost, if we can build up or build out, then that's something I want to know before we say, let's go get a whole brand new building.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be lovely if you have somebody that would like to endow the Simsbury Police Department with a new building. I am all on board with that, but in the interim.
I think we would like to be on board with whatever.
Yeah. So I feel like we need more, I personally felt like we needed more information to know, okay, where are our shortcomings and how can we address them? Is it only a new building or is it?
What's missing, is it, like, how many interview rooms are there, 2?
Yes, there are 2. Yeah. One of the issues is right off the lobby.
Right.
And that room is shared with our fingerprint.
Right.
So the 600 to 700 or so fingerprints that come in every year, now you're competing to use that room.
Right.
And there's also very little privacy. So you have a victim, somebody who's emotional, somebody who wants to keep as much as they can sort of private at this
Right.
point. You're really restricted
Right.
there. Otherwise, you go into the secure portion of the police department, and then there is a room that's set up as a interview room for mostly other things. But that's really it. And we would like to have the public interview room and the fingerprint room separated,
Right.
so people are not waiting around in our lobby. Because that interview could take a long time, because we're taking statements.
But so that report just said, this is what your shortcomings are, or this is what you need.
Yeah, it was like
There's no
you
compare and
need,
contrast, and this is what you have, this is
Exactly.
what you need.
so there was a lot of information, like you need a fingerprint room that's 21 by 14 with this kind, and that's great. That means nothing. Like, do we have space in the building to put a 21 by 14?
Was there anybody that can say, this is what they're saying, they need a fingerprint room 20 by 14, which is obscenely huge.
I made that number up.
Okay. This is what you currently have, and this is not. And this is the reason why what we have is not acceptable, because it's private, it's sharing rooms, blah, blah, blah. We have 2 inner rooms, one's secure, one's in the hallway. So if and this is why this is not adequate.
And that's what we don't have. So we have, you need this would be great. And there wasn't that connecting piece. And so initially, I think it was $75,000. It was a lot of money to get Tecton to come in and evaluate and then sketch out like what our
Yeah,
things were.
they did a really good job at looking at the programs that we have, the services we deliver, the number of people, and what that would mean, like what size we should
Yeah.
have. And as Jenna described it, we just don't have the connection there. And I think that, at least on my part, there's a little bit of a hesitation of paying a company
Right.
to show us that,
Right.
when you can walk through and see that we don't have
Right.
what they're saying we need today. So
For the
from,
wish list, basically.
well, from the standpoint of trying to save some money, like, you know, if you had a car that had 4 flat tires, I mean, you don't need a mechanic to come in and say,
Right.
you have 4 flat tires. So, you know, you have to spend money to get the tires.
Right.
So I kind of felt like we're at that point, and I didn't want to advocate for that go-between, that gap that we're looking for, but it seems like we may need that, or something along those lines, so people can see, you know, that we don't meet the needs that Tecton has said that we really need, given where we are. You know, and, you know, things are advancing, you know, significantly. If you take a walk around our facility, you see things hanging off the wall that we're not there 5 years ago. You know, for instance, like where we charge our body cameras, like there was something there beforehand, we removed it. Now we have this there, and you know, it's sort of like that all over the place. And if we hire more females, we are going to have an issue with locker room availability for them. So we'll have to become extremely creative on that. We've already looked at interior, what can we do about that? We can't expand that section. It will not work. So we have to look at a relocation and a swapping of things. So I think that's where a lot of the hesitation is spending another $10,000, $15,000, whatever it is to fill that gap. But maybe we need to be there. So maybe that would be our next conversation then.
That was part of the hope with having Public Works come in to see like this building can sustain blowing out a wall and putting something. And so that was part of the idea, is that Public Works and planning could tell us what we physically could do with this.
And we looked at that, you know, there's underground power supplies that would be astronomical just to remove or relocate. There are drainage issues, you know, there's things that can be overcome, but they cost a lot of money. If that is a 5 or 10 year fix, and we're looking at a new facility in 10 years and 5 years and 15 years, then we don't want that to be a wasted project when maybe a means like the records project to get us through a period of time. And you know, we've battled with the interview room in the lobby and the fingerprint for many, many years, and on occasion it's a big inconvenience for people. You know, and we've looked at relocating that down in another section of the lobby, and how much of a tight squeeze that would be. But you know, maybe that's another thing to look at, to relocate the stuff that's down there somewhere else. But yeah.
But to your point, I can reach out to Public Works and ask them if they would be able to give us ideas of what they've been able to either rule out or rule in. I can do that if you want me.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
But they are aware that of what the shortcomings are and what needs to be fixed.
Yes,
Okay.
they were
That
part
is
of
in
that
writing for
initial
their-
group, the
Okay.
initial, when Tecton did its initial survey,
Right.
and they met with them. They,
Not just that this room is too small, they know
No,
this is
they-
what we need.
yes, they have the booklet for Tecton.
Yeah, they had that same report and also the advanced conversation about what we feel are like the immediate needs to address. Records being one of those, the lobby, another being, you know, what do we do when there are, you know, potential bathrooms or lockers that we need for different gender
Right.
associations. So it's just, you know, those are some of the immediate concerns that we have.
A question that I don't know how to answer, maybe you guys have suggestions, is we did mention this at our last budget presentation to the Board of Selectmen. It was, you know, we gave them a heads up that Tecton was doing this report. But with the change in leadership and the continuation, like, you know, the evolution of the board, do you all have ideas on how to maintain, other than just bringing it up at our presentation, maintain this information on the forefront so that people know it's coming?
Well, the town has a long-term budget projection for capital expenditures as well as operational. I assume it's there. I don't know if it is, but I hope it will be there. And, you know, they had a 6-year program, which is pretty short-term for long-term planning. But that's going to be 10-year or 15-year projection. That's fine, it should be there, visible to whoever wants to see it.
Now, are you asking specifically if there's somebody, if there's, to keep it in the forefront of
Well, I
the
know,
board's mind?
as our commission, when we present our budget to the Board of Selectmen, like, I mentioned it as like a FYI, this isn't currently on our budget, but
Right.
it's going to be added at some point.
Right.
But all of those people are leaving, you know, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I know, wouldn't that be terrible?
Yes.
But how do we make sure that, you know, that continuity? I just feel like there's often a large evolution of who is and is not in office, and so I want to make sure. Oh, yeah, you.
I have a suggestion. So, once we were able to get it on the capital plan,
Okay,
I think shortly after that, you know, there will be a meeting to discuss that. Like, how is that going to happen? And I imagine there would be a committee that would be formed. And that committee would be responsible to sort of set up, you know, presentations at the Board of Selectmen meetings, not on a monthly basis, but at certain, you know,
Periodic.
milestones, you know, certain milestones. And at some point, I mean, you have to have finance involved. How do you start saving for a project like that? I think do the same thing for, you know, large projects, rebuilding a high school. You know, so I think that, you know, pulling people in and having those milestones presented on a fairly regular basis, we'll keep it at the forefront. Before we know it, that year X will be closer and closer. We have to meet those, or else people will go nowhere. But that will be, I think, steered by this group.
all right.
Excellent.
Any other questions? As a writer down, I want to make sure he gets it written down before I interrupt him.
I think that's long enough.
I know, he's writing a novel over there. He doesn't
Yeah,
have
I'm
the Gen
almost
X
set. I'm
shorthand.
just taking notes here.
Just shot my papers, we're gonna pretend that didn't happen. All right, any other questions? Any other old business? In that case, I move to adjourn our police commission.
Somebody else.
Okay.
Jeez, do everything. I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Do I have a second? All in favor of adjourning the meeting at 5:51 PM, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.